Sound Off program. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the show, and thanks for joining us tonight. My guest and I have a long list of topics that we would like to talk about tonight. We definitely will not get to all of them, but I do want to say the phone number is on the screen, and if you should have a topic that we're not touching on and you would like to pipe in with a comment or a question, you're most welcome to do that. There's so much going on, not only in the country, but in this state. There's so much work to be done, and I certainly hope that you all got out there today and voted in the primary. We are so blessed in this country to have the right, the opportunity to elect our leaders. And I can't emphasize how important that is and why we need to take on that responsibility, and of course study a little bit and understand who the people are before we vote, so that we have an understanding of what we might get from them in terms of effort on behalf of the people. So with that, I would like to introduce my guest. He's no stranger to the program. His name is Don Tessier. He lives in St. Albans, and he's a friend. And welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. There is a lot to talk about.
We never run out of topics, do we?
No.
So, again, friends out there in viewing land, if you would like to join in with a remark, you're more than welcome to do that. So with that, how about I offer you the opportunity to open with a topic.
Well, in less than 90 days,
Yes.
November the 3rd is what?
Election Day.
Election Day. And I hope everybody gets out and votes like they did today. And one of the things I'm concerned about is who's going to be the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States. And my biggest concern is the Vice Presidency of the United States. So I'm trying to tell people, look well to your ballot, make no mistakes. Because if something happens to the standing president, the vice president will take over. So when you look at the Democratic side and the Republican side, look at the vice president as well and what that person can do for the country if the president should be impeached or dies or whatever, okay?
God forbid.
Right, because on the Democratic side, Susan Rice, they were looking at her, and that would have been awful. And I said,
Terrible.
you know, and some of the other ones, all right? And of course, they just announced Harrison from California going to be the vice president with Joe Biden, all right?
Yeah, what's the name again?
Her last name is Harrison. Amelia, is it?
Oh, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. All right? And we were talking, I can't wait to see in the debates, all right, what she said about Joe when they were going after the presidency.
She was critical of him?
She is critical of him about certain things. And what also with her is you got to watch out for the Democrats because they want to defund the police in most states. And she's from California, which is a very liberal state. And if she became president, she would carry that liberal stuff right along to everybody in the United States. So when you vote for the president, remember, look at the vice president as well, because that's important, in my opinion anyways, because if we get the wrong person in there, and what's going on in the world today with all this uprising stuff like this, burning buildings and stuff like this all over the world, and if it's and what's happening here in the United States, out west, and it's burning business, you know. So, I said, make sure you look well to your ballot.
Well, yeah, know who you're voting for and why.
Right.
And
just don't vote because it's a Republican or a Democrat. I have always voted for the person.
Well, yes. Hopefully, the people who are running look at the platforms of the various parties and then stand up for the platforms. And we would like to think that we can trust that if someone says, I'm running as a Democrat, that they're going to pretty much follow the Democrat philosophy.
Well, that senator from from Minnesota, Omar, they had her like, and she's a communist, all right? And the Communist Party is going to try to take over this country. And remember, we were talking before it started, back in the 60s. They talked about they'll get the United States from within, not out. They're not going to bomb us. And Bernie Sanders is a communist, and here he gets voted every time in Vermont.
I know. One of the things on my list of topics is term limits for Congress.
Yeah.
That has to happen. It can be reasonable, but it has to happen because Senator Leahy, with all...
He's been on there since the 1970s.
54 years.
Right.
That is ridiculous.
I would give them 5 years and then send them on their way.
Yeah, there's been some talk about, I think, 3 terms for House members and 2 terms for senators, which only gives House members 6 years because it's 2 years per term. But if a senator gets 2 terms, that's 12 years.
Yeah.
So I think we need fresh blood now and then.
Our founding fathers didn't do that. They went, and then they went back home to their states.
Yes.
Look what George Washington did.
Yes, it wasn't a life...
Jefferson, all those guys.
Yeah, it wasn't a lifetime business.
Right.
You go in and you serve the people, hopefully, and then you leave, and someone else has an opportunity. Anyway, that's one of the things. We need term limits, and there is an amendment, a constitutional amendment, to get that done, but you have to get a certain number. I think it's 2/3 of the states have to agree to it. So that's one thing, and another topic, this Global Warming Solutions Act that the liberal environmentalists, whatever you want to call them, want to enact in this state will be a disaster. First of all, Vermont has, I think, the lowest or the second lowest carbon footprint in the nation. We have greenery everywhere. Trees absorb whatever carbon is emitted, and we don't need to be in a hustle and bustle about that. We need to allow people to be free and to make their own decisions. And these people pushing that Global Warming Solutions Act have their hands in and their plans in every aspect of our lives.
Well, we talked before online. As I told you, I said I watch Gary every morning at Channel 3. And we've had a real storm with high weather, 100 degrees and stuff like this, set a record. Mm-hmm. Back in 1949, we had the same thing that happened in 1949. So I was talking to somebody the other day. I said, where was the global change people back then in 1949? As I told people, I grew up in Florida. I went to first grade in Green Cove Springs, Florida. And we moved in 1949 to Virginia, and I lived there until 1959. So we've always had down south. But like I said, the record was set in 1949 as well as here.
Yeah.
So I don't buy in this global warming stuff. And when you talk about carbon, and Democrats in the state of Vermont, if the people out there are listening, they want electric cars to get rid of carbon. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have an electric car, vote Democratic.
Well,
But you're going to have to pay for it, and if you know what the cost is, it's more than a standard car.
But guess what? I believe, I read that the government in Vermont, which is you and me, we are subsidizing the purchase, an individual's purchase of an electric car.
And plus electric buses.
Yeah,
Down in Burlington.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to Boston, make it a 3-day trip, because I don't know how many hours you can drive on electricity before you have to, refuel. It's not like going to the gas station and getting 20 gallons of gas or 15 gallons of gas. So, you need to watch when you vote, you need to watch what these people are going to throw at you. And it's just like all these Democratic mayors here in the state of Vermont, especially Burlington, are cutting the cost. The budgets on police officers are going down. Police officers are retiring, taking disability, and they're not going into places because of certain things.
Oh, yeah. Where is the safety going to be for all of us, whether you're a child or whether you're elderly or anywhere in between? We need our police officers.
Linda, you can't buy any ammunition or certain guns in the state of Vermont right now?
No, I did not know that. And who said so?
All the dealers. They don't have them because people are buying them.
Oh, I thought you meant somebody was
No. The people are buying these guns.
They're sold out.
All right, they're sold out because they're nervous about no law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And, back in the days in the wilderness, that's how farmers lived.
Yeah.
Every farm, that's why the Brits couldn't beat us, is because every farmhouse had weapons.
Well, why do you think the founders of this country let it be known that through what they designed for this country, the Second Amendment,
Right to bear arms.
Exactly, for the individual. And because they knew that if government tried to get too big, too controlling, too out of control, that the people needed to be able to defend themselves against government.
They call those back in the day the militia.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what the wording is in the document.
That's right.
But what is it? A well-formed something militia. Anyway, we have to. I cannot emphasize this enough, folks. I'm not going to be around forever, that's for sure. But don't look so shocked. But while I'm here, I feel a duty to plead with the viewers to make sure that you understand the vulnerability that we have right now with these socialist ideas, these progressive socialist ideas that are coming from people who, I don't know if they're being subsidized, some of them are.
Yes, they are. By
George Soros and others. And they want to bring this country down. And they're attacking this nation from so many directions. Education, for one.
Right.
Healthcare, for another. The border porousness, for another. Weakening the police force, another. And it goes on and on. And we need to stand up and fight back, folks. I'm telling you, one of the things that's really concerning to me is what's going on in our schools. We need to get rid of the Common Core curriculum, which, by the way, was designed by none other. One of the people on that committee that designed the Common Core curriculum was the founder of Microsoft.
Oh, yeah.
With all his billions, Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And what does every child have in the classroom? Oh my, a computer. How convenient, right? But where are the textbooks? Anyway, I think the curriculum is really scary. That proficiency learning has to go. We need to get back to grades. I've spoken with high school seniors who were so concerned that they didn't have a transcript to get to a college that they would like to, attend. You don't have grades.
That's right. It used to be,
We would have a test. It would be
150, 75,
Yeah.
65.
Yeah, there would be maybe 50 questions on the
Yeah.
test, and they were each answer was worth 2 points.
Right.
And so you knew how well you did, and if you did well, you felt good about yourself. If you didn't do well, then you knew you had to work some more. But it could be a positive on either side. Anyway, do you have another topic? But education is key. One last thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because if our children do not learn about the true founding of this country, the Declaration of Independence, why the people came here from Great Britain, because of King George III, who was a tyrant in Great Britain, and these people did not feel free. They couldn't practice their religion. They were highly taxed. Sounds like what's starting to happen here.
In England right now is not allowing people from France to come to their country. Did you know that?
I know they allowed a lot of Muslims in.
No, they're not letting it right now. Anybody coming out of France, they have to go through certain things in England. Their immigration is being really stricting. They're getting down on it because they've had a lot of problems in England with these Muslims. So,
It helps if you're talking to your mic. Maybe the young man, our wonderful technician, isn't concerned, but anyway, that's me.
No, but a lot of these other countries, you name them, Russia, all those places, they know who's crossing into their borders. That's why the United States needs to take a lesson from these other countries.
Protect your borders.
That's
Protect
right.
your people. Protect your businesses. Protect your children.
Well, that's why I brought it up about France and England. People wouldn't think England would be watching like that. They think that we're a bad country, certain people, because we have our borders watched on the north and south, and here's other countries doing the same thing. You try to go into Russia, for example, and see what happens to you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Well,
or even China.
When it comes...
And another place I'll send you, you'd probably like to go, North Korea.
No, thanks. I'll take...
But all these countries, all right, you go to North Korea and see what happens to you.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Thank you very much. I think I get that.
Well, there was a college kid from university, I think, in Virginia, remember? He went over there and stole a poster or something, and he came home in a casket.
Yeah. Well, they don't tolerate anything. It's government control. And you know what? These young people who hear Bernie Sanders and other socialists and people who want to control you talking about, free college and free health care and free this and free that. Well, guess what? In these countries that provide free education and free health care and so forth, the government tells you what you're going to study, and they tell you what kind of work you're going to do. You don't have the freedom to make those choices.
No, if you want to be a doctor, you're not going to make it.
The government decides where it needs you, and that's where they put you.
In a lot of cases, they put a uniform on you and give you a gun and send you off to war.
Yep.
In certain cases. And
Yep.
some of those countries like China and Russia.
And it's not by choice.
And North Korea.
Yeah.
Right.
So all this free stuff is about control.
That's correct.
And it sounds good on the surface until you realize the ramifications of it. Okay. Go ahead. You have another topic you would like to...
Well, as I was telling you, I've come by Collins Pearly today to come up here, and there's a group of people out there with signs, Black Lives Matter. And I saw someplace this week, it says All Lives Matter on a poster, and I can buy into that. And if it's Black Lives Matter, well, how come in Washington over the weekend there were shootings and deaths, There was a little girl in Philadelphia shot by a bunch of gangs. Chicago's the same thing. Detroit, okay? All these places, and this is blacks shooting blacks. It's not like whites. And I was talking to somebody last night, and I said to him, in Burlington situation, when there's shootings with blacks, it's always blacks shooting blacks each other. And now that the mayor is cutting back on the police officers, there's going to be more crime in Burlington. And then, like I said, most of the police officers are going on disability, retirement, and just quitting because they just can't take it anymore. And it's going throughout. Look what's going out there out west in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, yeah. Portland, Oregon, too. Yeah. Well, I have the greatest of respect for law enforcement at every, whether it's your local police or your sheriff's department or your immigration folks.
We got Border Patrol, on here, but their hands are kind of covered a little bit too, where they can't watch it. You got U.S. Customs protects the border. I mean, they can turn you back, all right, but. Yeah, we need to know who's coming into this country.
And, if we set a standard as a nation for people who want to come here, we need to let it be known, in order to come into the United States as an immigrant, you must respect our laws, you must respect our people, and you must, you must have a skill where you can provide for yourself and your family, so you're not a burden on the American people. And, I believe that Canada has a rule like that. If you want to come into Canada from another country, they want to make sure that you're going to be able to provide for yourself. Or either that, or you have to have some skill base that the country really needs.
That's true. Well,
And
we
that
got some
makes
of our
sense.
scientists from other countries. And one thing, when you brought up, this past week in Burlington, there's the protesters about the atomic bomb. But nuclear power, remember?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. So I told my wife, I said, I would like to talk to these people, all right? Ask the people in the South Pacific about Japanese, what they did to their people. Ask the people what the Japanese did to Filipinos. If it hadn't been for the atomic bomb that we dropped on the Japanese, we'd still be fighting those people. They found Japanese people 20 years later in caves, not surrendering because it was a dishonor. And people don't realize, but they were up in Alaska. I was watching television a while back, and they found where the Japanese were up there and had a fortress in Alaska.
Wow.
All right? And the officer actually committed suicide, all right, the commander, because he feel he did his job that they sent him to, because they were honorable people. But
Sure.
we'd still be fighting those people. And they tried, and if you were a prisoner of war, you're better off to be captured by the Germans rather than the Japanese, because the Japanese tortured people. And they actually made a movie about it a lot of years ago about it. Mm-hmm. So these people protesting down in Burlington about atomic energy, and we have atomic submarines, right? And because we can stay in the water for years because of what we have.
But do they not like them because they're...
They just against it because it could do harm, apparently. But, they don't understand what life's about. There's a lot of bad people out there that want to hurt the United States of America.
Well, yes.
And we have to be in a position to protect ourselves. And that's what our founding fathers set up for us, all right? So we could protect ourselves.
And be free.
And if they call these warmongers, if you say that we should have that. I grew up with members of my family all in the military, and they fought in World War II in the Pacific, and the stories they talk about out there. And then go to Vietnam, the people here, what they did down there, and we tried to save those people, and we lost American lives to help out other people, and they want to get rid of the military and all that. We can't do that. That's what happened, the Brits, that's why they couldn't take us, because the army that we had, most of them wore uniforms, but most of them didn't.
That's right. Oh, the farmers,
The
whoever,
farmers, right.
they got into the battle as well. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. There's a lot that went into the formation of this nation.
Yeah, and we had one here in Vermont, Ethan Allen, never heard of him?
Yes, oh yeah. And we the people today, I believe, are taking too much for granted. We're not paying attention. We are allowing some of these things to go on that shouldn't be going on. The people, I don't know what the people are thinking who want a porous border, and why they want us to have the burden of having to support all kinds of people who, we have enough to take care of here.
Like I said, if they don't like you in the United States of America, go to Key West, Florida, get a boat and go 90 miles to Cuba, and then stay there for a while and see if you like it.
Well, this country is a threat.
Yeah.
And the people who are globalists, like Bill Gates and George Soros and so forth, and many others, the World Health Organization, what's the big...
Yeah, but and people gave Trump crap when he cut money because this virus, if they would have told us more about it, we could have prepared ourselves, but they sat back. They were... the Chinese had their finger on them, all right? And so this is why we got that problem today, is because them, and we gave them millions of dollars, and they screwed us. So Trump said, no more. You're not a friend of ours.
The United
Why are they giving your money, my money away, our tax money away to somebody who's not going to help us?
Well, for years, this country
No kidding.
has been subsidizing
The World Health Center Organization.
Yes. And what's the big...
So right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you think, things are bad, all right, they could have been worse, but we got to protect ourselves, and we can't be friends to everybody, and we have to be strong, just like NATO. Germany, he said no more money to Germany, and we're taking our troops back out of there because they're not paying their fair share. And the number of people that we died in World War II in Germany?
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And of course, then plus in France, because Germans invaded France as well, and they invaded a lot of other countries, and we lost American soldiers.
Well, yes, and to the detriment of this country, through the years, our government, which means you and I, the working people, have been subsidizing the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and other organizations way beyond the amount that we should have been paying. We were covering for other countries around the world, and to the detriment of this country, because we need that money. We're willing to pay our fair share.
Right.
But beyond that, no. And I'm so proud of President Trump for saying enough.
Well, I think the United Nations, all right, and NATO was a good idea at the time, but it went bad because of poor leadership. And then you get a guy like Trump says, wait a minute here. He's a businessman. What am I getting out of this?
Best thing we need.
Yeah, what am I getting out of this? And it's not him. It's what the United States, when he says, what am I getting? It's what's the United States getting out of this? And he says, it's not fair, and I'm not going to go into it. So we need, a lot of people don't like him because he's a businessman, but
that's the best thing.
Businesses close if they don't have business. And why should you keep feeding a dead horse?
And government is big business.
No kidding.
And we are so fortunate to have a business leader who knows where to look and how to evaluate and to come up with solutions. And we just can't have somebody who, like the previous president, you can't even see his college records if they exist at all. I mean, really. you know,
Did he really go to college?
do we really know where he was born? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that,
No,
but
like I said, times have changed, and you need to follow the times and the time.
and be involved.
Right, and be involved. And like I said, if you want to pay more taxes, go to a different country. There's certain countries out there.
70% of your income.
Right.
In a socialist nation.
Right.
Yep. Or not all of them, but in some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, 40 to 70%. And actually, there's a goal to charge us 40%. Wait a minute, that might be, no, that's 40% of your, what you leave behind a death tax.
Death tax, yeah.
40% denied to your family or whomever you choose to leave your, your assets to.
That's not right, because
You paid taxes all along.
and half of these people trying to pass that law won't do it because they have inside trading. As you well know, in Congress, they know what's coming on, so they can do things and pass a law. And so they can duck a lot of that stuff because we don't know what's happening, and they do, so they can set it up. And there is some investigations going on in Congress right now on some ladies. I'm not going to mention any names, but they live in California, of what they've been doing wrong, inside trading.
Oh, yeah. Listen, let me ask you a couple of questions about Vermont. Do you think that Vermont has to lower taxes and regulations?
Have you been drinking already? Lower taxes? You got to be kidding me.
All right.
I can. My son lives down in Nashville, Tennessee, and I can tell you, his taxes are a heck of a lot less than they are up here in St. Albans, Vermont, and the state taxes are a whole lot less. Then if you go down to South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and all those places there, why do you think people are moving to Florida? And why are people moving to Tennessee all the time, and North Carolina, South Carolina?
Well, one of the reasons is some of these states do not tax your Social Security income.
And a lot of the states, see, down south in South Carolina, North Carolina, there's a lot of military. Right? So when they retire, they stay there. And their pensions aren't taxed either. As well as, because now, back in the day, they get Social Security as well as their pension that they got in the service. It's not taxed.
Well, the government needs to look at its budget with a fine-tooth comb. I believe we need an audit of our government. I don't know if we will get, excuse me, we'll see who's going to be elected state auditor in November. But my thought is, let's do an audit of the Department of Education and the Agency of Human Services and other departments of government. Government in Vermont is the biggest employer in the state.
Well,
And what are we producing for that investment?
not a whole lot.
Well, I just think I want my money's worth. I don't mind paying my fair share, but I want my money's worth. I want the people who are making the decisions and doing the business of government to work with an eye for common sense and fiscal accountability.
Well, the state of Vermont is in a hole right now, as you know, the big deficit.
$4.5 billion.
Right, a big deficit. Guess who's going to be asked to make up the difference?
I
It's not
wonder.
going to be people coming up here skiing and going on Lake Champlain. It's going to be the 600,000 people who live here.
Yeah, but they're not all working. You
I know,
and
but
are
I'm
not.
saying, I know that, but the property taxes are going to go up, all right?
That's terrible.
All right, but all right, because a lot of these towns get property taxes, get part of the sales tax, like the town of St. Albans, all right? So when they don't get that, they're going to be coming to the property owners and say, we need more money. All right? So, I mean, so the people who are hanging around are going to start paying more money.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
And when you vote, look at your local people too and ask them how they're going to vote, and just not go along with here and there. We need to have somebody who say, stand up and stand up for the people.
Absolutely. Well, one, I believe, wise thing, a good thing that was done in the state was that people with lower incomes get a rebate. Yeah.
Me? That's me? No,
yeah.
Jason. But but that, I don't mind helping those people. I don't really, if they need it.
I think it
and
will.
if they need it and they earned it. I mean, I just don't believe in giving money away just because it makes me feel good as the governor or whatever. They do it.
Well, there are people who own property because it's a property tax thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that if they take that away, which some people are talking about, that a lot of the people who live here are not going to be able to afford to stay in their homes. And they'll probably move out.
Yeah.
And then they'll have no tax.
Well, like I said, down south, even in Virginia, the taxes down there are less. So people are moving down there, and the climate's better, and a whole lot. The roads are a whole lot better than some of the roads. I don't know if you've been driving down Route 7 in St. Albans, but it's a washboard. You're jumping up and down the road. If you want a milkshake, just put it in the hand and drive down the road, and you get a milkshake, because the roads are really bad. And what's going to happen now is they're going to raise the gasoline tax. You just watch out for those people in Montpelier.
Yeah.
There's a big deficit down there, and they're going to look for ways to do it. And gasoline tax and this carbon tax that they're talking about.
They'll tax more.
All right, on gasoline, so 50 cents a gallon more on gasoline.
Well, that's partially to penalize people who drive a vehicle with gasoline, okay? So they're going to raise the tax on that to try to get people fed up and to maybe get them to buy an electric car. But all of this environmental stuff, all right? You have windmills, which are an eyesore. You have the panels on houses, solar panels all over the bloomin' place.
Yeah.
And now we have these charging stations around wherever they are. And
Basically down in Burlington, I think Montpelier's got some. I don't think St. Albans has any.
And I don't know where they are, but
Well, I know they have them in Burlington, and I think they do have them down in Montpelier, but I don't think the smaller cities like St. Albans has them yet, but they're probably pushing for that.
So these things are all eyesores.
Yeah.
They're not attractive in this beautiful, unique state.
And what are you going to do on the interstate when your power goes down? All right, when you want to go to White River Junction.
Well, you better have planned ahead.
Okay, Montpelier might have them, but some of these small communities probably don't have them.
Well, that's the same thing if you don't gas up your car.
That's right, but I'm saying, but if I go to St. Albans town, I don't think they have them. If I don't have electric a place I can there, I can't go I got to call a wrecker or something like that. But I mean, it's getting out of hand, like you said. We're not a big polluter.
Of course not. And we don't need all of these, I think under Peter Shumlin? No, not, what was his name? Shumlin.
Yeah. That's Peter Shumlin.
Was it?
He's before Scott.
Yeah. And they got rid of that fantastic source of energy at 4 cents a kilowatt.
Uh-huh.
And it was safe, it was clean, it was cheap.
That was down in Brattleboro.
Well, where they had the
Yankee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Brattleboro. And Brattleboro's hurting right now because the taxes there, and Vermont Yankee get a lot of stuff for the schools, stuff like that. Because I played golf with a guy down there in that area. He used to work there.
They had
And
about
Brattleboro's
600
really screwed right
employees.
now because Vermont Yankee took real good care of them with the taxes, and that whatever the community needed, they took care of it. It's just like when we had the Air Force Base up there on St. Albans Hill. The federal government paid some taxes and stuff. The economy was good because these people some of them had apartments, but most of them lived on the base. And the economy here, the stores, the grocery stores, the foods, the clothing stores, had people buying stuff.
Look
so when
what's
they
happening.
when they moved out and shut down the base, it hurt the economy of St. Albans.
Oh, yeah. They had a terrible time down in that Windsor. Was it Windsor?
Yeah.
They just had a terrible time. People were out of work. These people, 600, I believe, people worked at that facility, Vermont Yankee.
Yeah.
And they made good money.
Oh, yeah.
And they moved out after the place closed. And then all of the spending that they had done in the area, and probably children in the schools and everything, it all disappeared. And they've had a terrible time down there with their economy.
Yeah, well, this guy, he was an engineer there, and he said, I think it was like at least $200,000 a year that they gave the town.
Wow.
That's a lot of money, a quarter of $1,000,000.
Well, now, Vermont taxes the Social Security income.
Yep.
And I think our legislators need to stop that. I'm hoping that we can have a county meeting with our legislators and give them a list of the things that we as the citizens, because they're all supposed to be representing us, right?
Right.
So if there's a large majority of people
Show up.
that want a certain action taken, then they need to know it.
Well, we need to see if we can get that going. Of course, with this virus thing going around, we have to put masks on everybody, and we've got to be 6 feet away, but we can do it such a way, we do it by microphones, so we can do it, and have the people say, this is what we want. I mean, we can get around all this stuff that's going on now if we use our head, but they need to know that we need to stop taxing the people up. The state of Vermont, like you said, we don't have that many people coming in here to live.
Oh, I know. Any new people.
Yeah.
The voting by mail. What a disaster. There's no way that I was going to ask for a ballot to be mailed to me and then mail it back. I got my body into the voting place in Georgia at the town hall today, and I voted in person.
Well, there's people in the world that would love to have that same opportunity that you and I have, but dictators say, this is it and that's it. So I'm on your page, same with you. That's a right to do, and you should. It's people say, well, I don't have the time. Well, that's not an excuse that I can accept.
Well,
because you can go into any town clerk's office anytime they're open and vote right there in front of them, not in front of them, and then give them the paper. So it's not, you don't mail it in.
it felt really good to do that.
Yeah, early voting, they call it.
Well, you can request an absentee ballot,
That's true.
but that's different than this vote by mail thing for
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. That's if I'm in Florida and I want to vote, but, absentee.
Somebody has to come up with a business plan to ensure that the voting system is safe, protected, secure, honest, all of these things up front, so that we get the true vote.
You mean I can't stuff the ballot box
No,
anymore?
you cannot stuff the ballot box. I loved going in to vote today. I really enjoyed doing that.
Well, you should be, because there's people in this country the world, I mean, that would love to have the rights that you and I have.
Exactly.
To walk in there and say, I don't like that guy, I want this guy.
And it's easy when you have the rights that we have in this country to
Be
take them
lazy.
for granted
Yeah, be lazy.
and not really appreciate them. And so we need to teach our children how lucky they are. Teach our children, if they're not doing it in the schools, which we're paying them a lot of money to do, then we need to get a group of people to go to the school board meeting and just say, this is what we want. This is what we're paying for this. You want our tax dollars. This is what, we want. We don't want Bill Gates determining the curriculum.
That's true.
So, parents' job is to teach their children at home work ethic, personal responsibility, respect for others and yourself. Teach them to build self-confidence by accomplishing things through the work ethic, and take pride in being an American citizen. And every parent, I believe, that's part of their job.
Well, most parents, when our children were going through, and when I was a child, I used to learn how to read before I got to first grade, because my mother and my grandmother made sure that I knew how to read before I got to first grade.
Good. I don't remember. My parents might have taught me. I don't remember. But I was always a diligent student. I wanted to learn. I wanted to do well. And I loved it. I loved school. Not only did I get to see my friends, but I liked almost every one of my teachers. And
The one that made you behave you didn't like?
no, that's the one I did like.
No, you're right. I mean, when I was going, the teachers were our friends. They took us out to recess, to lunch, recess, stayed after school for homework. If we needed have some problems with homework, stayed a little bit after. They help you out with to get you on the right track.
Huh.
See, I was a slow learner. I wasn't smart like you.
Oh, I see. Oh, dear. Well, let me see. And I'm sure I've said this on the show before, when you look at the United States Constitution and the clearly defined role of the federal government, it's outlined 1, 2, 3, I think, I should know this. I think there maybe are 12, 13, or 14 jobs of the federal government. Never did the founders of this country give the federal government any control of education or health care.
That was a local thing.
It's statewide and local.
Right.
And if it's going to be statewide, then we have to elect people who are going to respect, the people at large, because they're elected to represent us.
Right.
Right? That's the whole concept. So they can't represent us if we don't let them know what we want.
What we feel, right.
Yes. So that's our job.
We're going to make you the chairman.
Okay.
You're the boss. Uh-huh. No, but I'm serious.
I wish I
we should get a group of people and have a gathering. We could do it in such a way, like at Taylor Park, and everybody stand away from each other. And because I got a feeling things are going to get a little bit better, I hope, down there. I think that we're going to get some vaccine that's going to be able to take care of the flu.
They're not giving me any vaccine. No way.
Well, you don't. Well, we have it for the flu, don't we?
I don't take it.
You don't? Well,
Nope.
I did. Maybe I'm stupid, but
Well, I'll tell you something.
did you ever have a polio shot?
I don't think so. Maybe when I was younger. Yeah, probably. I don't know.
When Salkwood did it, I remember getting mine down in Florida in 1949.
I had measles as a child, I had mumps, and I had chicken pox, okay? So now I have maybe a built-up immunity to that type
You
of
ever had the
thing.
shingles?
No,
You ever had the shot?
no.
If you get the shingles, you're going to say, I wished I had the shot.
Well, we'll
Because
deal.
I went and got the shingle shot, because I know somebody who had the shingles, and what they went through was unbelievable.
Oh, well, I'll deal with it if the time comes.
Well, I tell you what, you better have a full deck of cards, because it's going to be a long dealing.
A long haul.
It's going to be a lot of dealing. I'll tell you, you're going to wish, all right? It's like poison ivy. I know somebody's got poison ivy, all right? So
Well-
you want to scratch yourself to death.
Until our medical community can know for certain what all of the ingredients are that are in these solutions that they inject into us, when that happens, then, they put things in there that are not good, and I'll tell
Well,
you.
yeah, I know, but like I said, my mother, we went of course, we went to the Naval Air Station. She walked me right down there and got my polio shot, and I'm still
I'm sure I had that.
I'm still going.
I'm sure I had that
Okay.
as a
I mean,
child.
certain things you got to take a chance in life,
I remember we couldn't go to the beach. My father wouldn't allow us to go to the beach during that time of the Salk vaccine and all that. But my story is that in October 24th of 2015, I was at the doctor's office, and I was pushed and pushed and pushed by the assistants that come into the room, and, oh, well, it's fall, you should have the flu shot, and you should have the Pneumovax. I said, I don't want them. They came back, and they came back. Finally, I just said, do it. Well, one here and one there. 9 days later, both feet were numb. They've been numb ever since.
Really?
Yep. I went to a neurologist, and he acknowledged, he tested me, and I said, what do you think? He says, that's more than likely what
And
happened.
you're a nurse anyways, correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay. So you know more about it than me. I guess I'm just a gambler. And say,
Well,
I'll take
everybody
it and see what happens.
Everybody has to make their own decisions.
Right.
But that experience taught me something.
I can imagine.
Okay, I was really mad at myself for allowing them to do it. Anyway, that's just a little aside. Everybody has to decide for themselves. Let's see. One of the things, if we got a group of people together, one of the things that is really important that I think in our schools, every day in every classroom, there must be a pledge to the American flag.
With American flag in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I checked out one school, and I was told different things by different people. One person said, oh, yes, it's said every day. And then I talked with a student that was a family member, and they said, only on Mondays. And then I
That's
talked.
a week to take the day off.
I talked with a teacher who told me it's up to the teacher. Now, I'm sorry, but this is an American school. They're all American schools. And we're about being American citizens in an American school. And our children should be saying the pledge every day, standing up with their hands over their hearts. And these athletes who have no respect,
Take the knee. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm with you on that.
I think they're a disgrace,
Yeah.
and they should be ashamed of themselves, and I think they ought to get off the darn football field.
Well, a lot of them has cost them millions of dollars in endorsements, because a lot of people, for
Good.
example, like me, if there was like a sporting goods company that was giving him millions of dollars and he's taking it, I wouldn't buy their products, right? So they do get
They
hurt.
stopped.
So a lot of these people now in the sporting industry make sure that these guys will And like I said, like when it was all happening, a friend of mine, my son, I mean, a friend of his, had tickets to down in Nashville, Tennessee, the Titans down there, and he had season's tickets, and he didn't give them to anybody. He wanted to show them that there was empty seats, to show them that.
Good for him.
Right. Like that.
Money talks, doesn't
Right.
it?
It does. He said, them taking a knee is not what, especially down south. Like I said, there's more military people live in the South than any parts of the world,
Yeah.
the United States anyways, all right, who fought for that flag.
Yeah.
And so when you don't pay respect to it, it makes them annoyed.
Absolutely.
And
Did I touch on the English language?
what's that?
There are 32 states
No, you haven't done
that have made English the official language of their state. And I would like, if we get a group to get together and talk with our legislators, I would like to see Vermont. I know it's been introduced, I'm pretty sure, by one of the legislators. Not from up here, but from another part of the state. But it hasn't been taken off the wall.
Well, it should be. If you want to speak French, okay, fine. But the English language, all right, is the official word for for Vermont. But there are people who live not so much now, but like for example, my grandparents migrated from Canada, from Montreal to here.
They spoke French?
They spoke French. My mother was born in
That's
Alberta,
okay.
and they went to Massachusetts, but they didn't speak French down there. Once they got to the United States, they didn't speak French. But up here along the border, there's a lot of French farmers who come across, and their kids spoke French, but now they all speak English.
Well, when people migrate to this country and they want to live here,
Most of them do go into English, but some of them don't.
well, they need to have the English language so they can assimilate into our culture. And if you know English, you're more likely to be able to get employment.
Right.
So that's helpful.
Unless you're going to be an interpreter.
helpful,
Well, of course, you couldn't speak English then, could you?
helpful to them. Let me see. Oh, one other thing. Do you check the newspaper for the listings of people who have committed crimes of one type or another? Used to be a really long list. Now, recently, because the paper is a lot smaller, but they don't have as many listed. But what I see is they commit a crime, they're arrested, they go to court, and the court says, come back in a month or two.
And then they leave.
They give them a date. But what I'm seeing, and I hope I'm wrong, I would love for somebody who knows differently to let me know, but if there are no consequences for illegal actions, then the illegal actions don't stop. But then we have a problem with facilities to jail people. You know, that's been going on.
We have a lot of prisoners down in Mississippi.
Yes, and a lot of them develop the virus.
Virus, right.
Yeah. But it's cheaper because Vermont was costing us so much here to house people that committed crimes that we sent them to other states because it wouldn't cost us, because we would have to provide everything.
Right.
All right? We have to, all the bells and whistles, all right? And in the other states, maybe they don't provide as much.
So most of the criminals coming to Vermont aren't Vermonters. They come up from Massachusetts and Connecticut with drugs, and New York City from drugs. And so they need to go to Mississippi or these other places. And if you get somebody here in Vermont, we'll send them down on Lower Newton Street. All right?
Well, we never run out of things to talk about, Don.
Right.
We both have a list, and we have about 30 seconds or less now, according to the clock.
Oh, okay.
So
You're a clock watcher, too.
yeah, I'm a clock watcher. So we'll have to do this again.
Okay.
Okay? And as usual, you're up to date, and I thank you very much for being who you are and for coming on the show. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We hopped around from topic to topic, but stay well, and I'll see you again next week. Good night.